Hey everybody, Dustin Thompson here again. I know I've heard from some folks down in Sussex County in particular, but I've heard some people in Newcastle County as well wonder why their electric bill went up, even though they don't have natural gas. And we've been talking a lot about how natural gas is a big driver of these energy bills, but they don't have natural gas. They have a heat pump. They invested in a heat pump. And their electric bill went up this year compared to last year. Now, the most I've heard was around $150 to $200 difference between this year and last year. On the gas side, it was usually $400 to $500 more, so a big jump there from a heat pump to natural gas costs. But I want to still give a note on why those heat pumps were impacted by higher energy bills and why heat pumps are still a solid technology. So full disclosure, I use mini splits, which operate based on heat pumps. So for us on heat pumps, assuming it's not a cold climate heat pump, and you would know they cost a little bit more and they're rated for much lower temperatures. At around 20 degrees for some, 25 degrees for others, heat pump kicks into what's called an emergency backup or electric backup. And that's basically like a big space heater for your house. And they have a defrost mode because heat pumps often entail equipment outside. And they defrost more often when they're exposed to these sub-zero temperatures. Now, additionally, the fans run a lot more as well to circulate the air through the house. So defrosting, electric backup, and increased fan usage, those things add up quick on an electric bill. But let me talk a little bit about temperatures for a second, because I know a lot of folks think that it wasn't that much colder. They hear that on average it was around 5 degrees colder, but average isn't really capturing what we need to talk about here because on the margins are what matter for heat pumps. So at 25 to 30 degrees, you're a lot less efficient than you are at 40 degrees. That's true for any system, particularly true for heat pumps though. So you run the fan a lot more because the air coming out of the unit's not as hot. And also the backup will kick in every so often for a little boost to offset that. But the defrost runs a good bit more in that 25 to 30 degrees band to clear the condensation off the unit. Now at 20 degrees, the electric backup runs a lot more. And at 10 degrees and into the single digits, if you don't adjust your thermostat a few degrees, it's going to kick in a lot and it's going to stay on for a while. That's especially true in older single family houses, which tend to have the biggest impact here recently. So no assumptions on your house, just mentioning it. Now, last year, we didn't have any days below 20 degrees in Wilmington or at Bethany Beach. This year, we had over a week of temps at or below 20 degrees in December and another week in January. Even at 25 degrees, heat pumps are less efficient, but you kick into that electric backup less. But we had 2 times as many days this year in both months, December and January, between 20 and 25 degrees than we had last year in both places. Now, Southern Delaware, it was even worse. And so some folks in Southern Delaware that was on heat pumps saw more expensive electric bills than those in Newcastle that are on heat pumps. Because we hovered at the low temperature for a lot longer this year than we did last year. But we had some days in December where the temperature was higher, so it offset that. So in the averages, you don't see that. But if you go in the day-by-day weather, you really start to see the picture. Last year, the average temperature where we hovered at for most of the day in December was in the 30s and 40s, relatively split evenly. That's all fine for heat pumps, really. This year, most days, the time we spent the most in was at 30 degrees or below. For January last year, most temps were around 30 degrees, a couple days in the mid to low 20s. This year, almost every day was in the 20s, and most of them 20 degrees or below, some in the single digits downstate. For single digits on a normal heat pump, not a cold climate, you really do have to consider adjusting the temperature and prioritizing which rooms you're heating and which rooms you're shutting the vents and closing the doors. And when it snows with heat pumps, it's particularly important to keep the units outside clear as much as you can And for any unit, it's really important that you clean the filters often, particularly in the winter when they're running a lot. But the honest truth is this, if it's 20 degrees or lower, you can either lower the temp and prioritize spaces, or it is going to cost more when that unit kicks into the backup. Now, at this point, some folks may wonder, well, why even do this? Why not just use gas? Well, gas systems have pretty much the same limits. But instead of an electric backup kicking in at 20 degrees, they just run a lot more and they use way more gas at 20 degrees and below, a lot more. Folks on gas aren't seeing that $150 increases. Most of them are seeing double and triple digit increases, often $200 to $400 more, some even upwards of $600 more compared to last year. And we talked about why in another video. But just to say that folks on heat pumps on average did better, but if you know the tech, you can do quite well with a heat pump on a normal Delaware winter and better than gas even in a cold snap. But if you're not aware of the tech limits and how to work with them, it can add up really quick. I know one person kept their heat pump at 75 degrees during that last snap, and they got hit with over $1,000 bill because they were downstate in those single digit temperatures and their backup ran nonstop and it was an older house. And so I'm hopeful that this will help you. Keep in mind, if you adjust your temperature down 3 degrees, that'll save you around 50% of your energy usage. That's true for the day. Then that's true for gas or heat pumps. And if you have a dirty filter, your unit, whatever it is, heat pump or gas, is going to use 15% more energy when it runs. So if it runs a lot, that adds up really quick. So make sure you always check your air filters often. Hopefully that was helpful for folks with heat pumps.